Hello and welcome to Box to Board, and tonight we are going to look at the rather excellent Carnevale. Now this is the first look at the rulebook. I got a Kickstarter literally a couple of days ago and I've had a look through and it is rather awesome. So let's have a look. It is a soft back, and but the quality is really nice. So first thing, we've got quite a good list of people involved. A couple of names there that you might notice. That are really good for good writers. We've got a lot of fluff in the game, or in the rule book. Then we've got the actual rules, and then we've got a lot of campaigns. So we're going to have a look at that. So the first thing is there's a really nice format where they do these kind of dark double spreads with a little bit of a story to it, and then that's immediately followed up by a few sections of light. The artwork is really good. The story is very dark, and you can see the rivers run blood, and it's quite impressive. The basic principle is it's rent in the sky, and that's created all kinds of weird phenomenon. And it is a Renaissance world, but not the one that we would know, because Europe has undergone quite a tumultuous time, to put it mildly, and Venice is emerging. So there's a whole thing about basically what the city is like and the different factions within it. These bits, these little vignettes, are really nice, and they're a really nice touch because they give you this sort of sense of the pace and the story, and they're incredibly well written, which is awesome. And you get a bit about what Venice is like in the wider world around it. We also have got lots about the different places and what they're like. So you're getting a flavour and a feel of this world, and then what Europe and beyond is like at the minute. So it's quite nice because it gives you a sort of flavour of this world. We then have things like, we've got a nice little timeline that goes through what's happened. So for instance, Venice was founded, Marco Polo, and we go to where are we at? Count Dracula, population plummets, 1581, the plague, and then we see, if I can get it, I can't see where it is, but you see the sort of whole sort of timeline that goes on, and in 1793 itself, you get a much more detailed guidance, timeline, and then 1794, 1795, so that's quite cool. And then we hit vignette. So then it goes into the individual factions, and some really interesting stuff about these, sort of highlighting individual characters within the factions, which is really nice, giving them a flavour, giving you an idea of what they're like and what they do, and how it works, which is really nice. So that's the guild, and the guild are quite eclectic. The thing that stands out about the guild is you get a character that looks like the guy at Assassin's Creed, which is quite cool. Then we have the Rashar, and you get a little story that kind of tells you and gives you a bit of a flavour of what they're like, and then it goes into fluff about them and what they're like and how they, what their different characters do. Very much a faction based around these fish guys, which is quite cool, these monsters. And then we go to, I believe that's the patricians, the bored nobility, who just basically go around creating mayhem for fun, in effect, for something to do, which is quite cool. One of the factions I nearly went with, actually. So you get this whole sort of thing about them, and then we're into the doctors, and the doctors are just really weird. So they've got they create these weird they make these weird creations that are kind of, have got these glowing bits that are quite cool and are very odd. Then the Vatican and the you know, what their story is. It's they're kind of creepier than what I remember the Vatican as before. And then we get into good old Dracula himself. You can actually have Dracula's character, the Strigoi, and how they are and what they are and stuff, and their story, which is really interesting. And then I think finally, yeah, we've got the Gifted, which is kind of like a mercenary faction, but they can actually play as a faction themselves, and they have some very, 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 very different characters, and some that you just think, oh, that'd be awesome to paint. Which is kind of cool. And then we go into the actual rules themselves. So all the way through, you can see these little punctuations of vignettes, which are really nice. Get into the rules. The rules are pretty tight, actually. They're nice and they're clear and they're well laid out. There's some really interesting twists. So we will have a video on how to play Carnevale at some point. The TTCombat have produced some as well, and they are really good. And it's a nice little system because it plays around with the water. Water's a big feature, and height is a big feature. So you find that it works on that sort of level, which is quite nice. So it's quite cool. I like it. I like it a lot actually as a system. Next thing you've got is the sort of like how to play the game, and you know how to set up game, and then a wee bit about campaigns, and then we get into individual scenarios, which are largely built around the year, and then it goes, no, sorry, my mistake, which are largely built around your faction. So you tend to find that, let's see, first, these look as if actually around the year first. Yes, so then they are built around the factions, so you get the ones that are for different factions in there. So you've kind of got one for each of your factions, and then they play against somebody, which is quite interesting. So I quite like that. I like the idea of having a themed set of campaigns, and it's cool. The masks represent the different factions, which is kind of cool. Then at the very end we get our index, and we get some references which are quite nice. They sort of go through how, you know, a quite quick find. And I've come round to a way of thinking that I'm playing that's actually really nice having that, because the amount of games where you're just flicking through all the time trying to find things, actually having it in one place and having it towards the end is a really clever idea. Now, you won't find in here any character sheets at the end, because those are online, and that allows, there's a whole set of reasons for that, but not least, I think that one of the reasons why it's really good to do it that way is that you can play with the balance, and you can introduce new characters a lot easier. So yeah. Now, as a game, as a book, I think it's really good. It would have been nice if it had been hardback, but actually softback's absolutely fine. And the quality of what's in there is really good. The quality of writing is superb, and really well thought through. Rules are good, and they make sense to me, and I can see it being quite, you know, there's some nuance in there which is really nice. And the world itself is very well developed, and it is very dark. It is one of those worlds where you sit and you go, oh, this is a bit different, and there's not a lot of nice characters in there, shall we say. But having said that, it's a really interesting place, and I love the mechanics of the game. Whenever you get it onto a board that's got the water, and Venice is a great place for a game, I think, and that's a particular time period. You've got some lovely minis that you can produce or produced. So we will look at the minis in the not too distant future, probably in another video this week. If you don't want to miss that video, if you don't want to miss looking at the minis that came with the Kickstarter and giving you an idea of what the quality of the minis is like, please subscribe, is probably the best bet, and like, share and comment. And thank you very much for watching, and hopefully that was interesting and useful, and hopefully it gave you a flavour of what the rulebook is like. Have a good evening.